Hello and welcome to Thinkpodpowered by the FII Institute. For more than 30 years, I led Sky News' coverage of global events, holding to account the politicians and change makers shaping the world of today. In this series, filmed at the 6th Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I've got the opportunity to question those shaping the future. At this inflection point in our history, how can we ensure that the future is one of prosperity and opportunity for all? This episode, I'm joined by Barbara Belvisi, founder and chief executive of Interstellar Labs. Critics of the space industry highlight the need to tackle problems on Earth before we look beyond this planet.
We have a very big mission, which is to protect life on Earth, but also to bring life to other planets.
We learn how Barbara intends to make life for humanity better wherever in the universe we decide to call home. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on ThinkPod. First of all, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Of course, my name is Barbara Belvisi, so I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Interstellar Labs. We have a very big mission, which is to protect life on Earth, but also to bring life to other planets. To do that, we've been developing deployable systems, deployable bubbles, inside which we autonomously recreate any type of climates, and we can grow multiple species of plants.
Tell us about your background. How did you get there?
That's actually a child dream. When I was a kid, I was dreaming of building domes on the moon and then on Mars to bring life, to bring the biosphere on other planets. Then I grew up, became an adult, and I was an investor. I invested in multiple hardware companies and robotic companies. And at a certain point in my life, I just, left being an investor to be myself the entrepreneur.
So you're not a scientist?
I'm not. I trained myself and I surrounded myself with scientists.
So tell us about Interstellar. That was your idea, was it?
Yeah, exactly. That was my idea. I'm the solo founder, but I have an awesome team around me.
What did you do? What did you set out to find the scientists and the engineers to do?
Well, so I'm not a billionaire, so it's not like I can do like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and just finance everything from the beginning. So to attract the talent and the money, my strategy was to do a big marketing push. So during a year, I worked with a whole team of designers and engineers, and we developed a concept of a station to live on the moon and in a sustainable way on Earth as well. And I presented it at a big conference, and then from that it attracted a lot of engineers and a lot of talent and helped me launch the company.
And how are you sort of generating it, financing it? You haven't built any on the moon yet, have you?
Not on the moon. So our main market is actually on Earth. So we have a terrestrial roadmap, LEO, so a low Earth orbit roadmap, and a moon roadmap. So when we do the board meetings, it's like the Earth market, the moon market, which is kind of funny. I was wondering if I could do that one day, but we're doing it. And so we sell product on Earth. So our main customers on Earth are very big natural ingredients companies. And because we are uniquely recreating any type of climate, we can grow rare plants that are used in food, cosmetics, that are disappearing on Earth. So we have a very, very sustainable solution for plant growth on this planet.
And these are what, effectively high-tech greenhouses?
Yes, exactly. Super high-tech greenhouses, because it's a terrestrial version of the one we're developing with NASA for the moon.
Where are they in operation at the moment?
In operation next to Paris. We have a 25,000 square feet facility where we're building them. The first one, full scale, is up and been running for a month and a half now, growing 12 different species: vanilla, vetiver, marigold, ashwagandha, which is #1 plant medicine in China. We have 2 endangered species, 2 orchids, passion fruit, blueberries, a lot of stuff.
What about the energy consumption of these? I mean, is it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we're optimizing right now the energy consumption. Most of I would say 50% actually of the energy we're using goes into the LED system. We're working with several companies to optimize the consumption, but the material that we develop is actually letting the light go through. So we can have some good spectrum from the sunlight, so we don't need as much LED as other greenhouses. So we have a lot of innovation there. And because the pod is completely sealed, we use less energy to cool it or warm it up. It has very good insulation. So one pod is 55 square meter on the ground. We can double the surface in terms of growing area. So it's 100 square meter of growing area. And it consumes energy Right now, it's like 30 refrigerator, so it's not that much compared to...
So, I mean, if you compare growing, I don't know, orchids or vanilla in a hot climate, as it were, a natural climate, compared to growing there, which is sort of more sustainable. Yeah.
So we use 99% less water. It's a sealed bubble, so we recycle everything. The only water we're using is actually the water that is going into the plant. We don't pollute the soil because there is nothing that is going out. Everything's recycled at the pod level. We scrap CO2. So we take CO2 from the atmosphere to elevate the level of CO2 inside the pod so we can accelerate photosynthesis. Last but not least, we reduce the footprints because we stack the different system so we can give land back to wilderness. So we use more power than agriculture, but we're solving some of the biggest problem agriculture is causing right now.
And what about the construction of the pods? Is that
sustainable? Yeah. The material we're using, you know your stuff. The material we're using for the membrane is ETFE. Then we're doing a composite base. Right now we're working on the life cycle analysis of the product, so we make sure the entire supply chain and procurement is, approved by our criteria.
When you talk about these pods, you're trying to have an entire cycle, so they're sustainable.
Yes. Exactly, that's what we're trying to do. It's step by step. The company is still young, but we're doing our best.
Well, presumably the limit is the lifespan of the pod.
Of the pod. The lifespan right now, the hardware is around 10 years, so it's like a car. The structure is 50 years. If we can change some piece of hardware inside, then we can keep the structure for over 50 years.
And where on Earth are you finding that there's demand for it?
There's demand. Cannot name them, but the largest natural ingredients manufacturers. They're mostly in Europe and North America. I can drop some of the names, but IFF, Madden, Givaudan, all the companies that need plants to extract natural ingredients that you find in your yogurt or in your shampoo or in your perfume. And because there is a growing demand from customer to have natural ingredients in what you eat, in what you put in your face, those companies that need more land to produce more of those plants. But land is getting very, there is a lot of pressure on land because we have a lot of people to feed, and at the same time we need to restore our soil. So we are one of the solutions.
And you can grow things more densely?
Yes, exactly. Densely, we accelerate the growth. The climate has no impact on what you're growing. And then you can use the pod for biodiversity conservation. This is another example, but we're in discussion with the Nature Conservancy and WWF on how we can grow endangered species in our pod. And when they reach a certain size, then we can replant them. So it's a lot of applications.
And is there a kind of natural limit on the size of a pod?
No, because we're doing inflatable. This version, so it's 55 square meter on the ground. The second version, V2, is like the size of a tennis court, so it's 4 times bigger, and it's an inflated structure. Inflated tennis court structure already exists. We're doing like a more advanced version of that, but this is the scale. We can be much bigger, but you take too much energy to control very precisely the environment of a pod that is too big. So there is a certain limit size that makes sense when it comes to controlling the environment.
And your goal is to be able to produce a pod in which people can live sustainably without ever leaving, is that right?
Without harming the outside environment. The goal is to provide tools so humans can use technology to live in harmony with nature instead of destroying it. And for that, we use a lot of space approach. And thinking on how we can live on other planets just give another perspective on how to design things.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Yes. I mean, theoretically, if you're in space, you couldn't kind of go outside.
Exactly.
So in other words, you've got to be able to live and exist
in a closed loop. So we're trying to recreate also this environment for humans that are going to live on the moon and then on Mars, so they don't feel too much disconnected from the Earth. But also because I'm a big believer that if human keeps on doing space exploration and going to other planets, it's not only about human, it's about life. We're part of something that is much bigger than us. We'll travel with our biosphere. At least this is what I want for the future. I don't want a destroyed Earth. I want an Earth full of life and plants and very green, great technology, And I want humans to go to space, but with plants, with garden, and with other animals as well. It's very romantic, but if I put the vision, I think we can make it happen.
I mean, and you're already working with
NASA.
space programs,
yeah,
NASA.
3 contracts with NASA. We have 1 prototype that we're actually releasing at the end of December at the Kennedy Space Center. We have 2 other programs, one with a food production system, so we can grow mushrooms and microgreens for a space exploration mission. And we have another one we haven't announced yet because it's a 5-year contract. It's a very big news. We'll announce it very soon.
This is to take your technology into space. Yeah. On what sort of scale?
So we have different versions. We have different size. So we have a cubic version, which is a combination of 9 cubes. Each is a different climate, but it's always the same concept: a box or a bubble where we control the climate. Everything is autonomous, and we grow plants inside. And that's just the form factor that changed, and the type of species we're growing inside, and that is changing. So the prototype that will be available at Kennedy Space Center is roughly like 2 meters high and 2 meters long, and we grow different type of plant. Then we have small payloads as well to go to the ISS.
But the resources, the growing material, the water, that all is taken from Earth, is it, up into?
So part is from Earth, the other part is coming from the station. So we use the water that is already in the station, and then the air supply is coming from the space station as well.
These other planets, they don't have life, biological life.
Yes.
So can they provide things that are useful to
humans
sustaining life?
Yes. So plants, they take CO2 and they make oxygen. So humans take oxygen and release CO2.
Yeah.
So it's working already.
Yeah.
So then you have to do the math of how much growing area you need to provide enough oxygen for a crew of 4 astronauts, for instance. This actually defined for us the size of the pod. So that's the work we've been doing with the NASA team. When it comes to water, you can use the black water. You can just purify it a little bit, and then you put it back into the system. So you can use the gray water.
But that's within a sustainable biopod.
Exactly.
So your vision is ultimately, if you had people living on
the
moon or
Mars
or whatever, that they would be basically existing on everything they brought with them, rather than in any way being able to exploit the place they found.
The place. I don't think we will be able to exploit the place. I mean, the only thing we can right now that we know we can get from the moon is going to be water, but we need to figure out a way to access to this water and purify it. If you think about Mars, you can get the CO2 actually from the atmosphere. The atmosphere is the opposite of the terrestrial atmosphere. It's full of CO2. So it's like a bad version, a dystopian version of the Earth. But, and so it's full of CO2, so you can actually take the CO2 and you can extract the carbon and you keep the oxygen. Mars is actually giving like minerals and different resources we can use, but you still need to bring a little bit of stuff if you want to survive on this planet.
So how viable do you think it is to achieve your vision of being a multi-planetary species?
I think it's going to happen in our lifetime, the fact that humans are going to go to Mars. So then we're going to be multi-planetary species by definition.
Well, yeah, but it's a bit different though, isn't it? Being able to visit or even to go there and die rather than to be established as a civilization, a habitat.
Probably 100 years from now. We'll have real settlements with real colonies of humans living there.
What are the sort of ideal plants with few little waste, better than what was grown on Mars in the movie?
The best ones to grow, of course, carrots. Some microgreens we're working on. It's a cereal called amaranth. Not a lot of people know of it. It's very, very rich in protein. So that's a very interesting one. Broccoli, chili peppers, a specific species of corn. They're like baby corns. So they're very rich, they grow very fast.
But these things, they all have foliage and stalks and things which you don't eat.
Yes, but so there is a ratio. There are like 8 criteria that we've been using with NASA on the plant selection. Like palatability, the taste, because you want the astronaut, if it's a long-term mission, to be able to have different tastes so they don't feel like they're eating the same food all the time, like the Martian. So palatability, and the one is the ratio edible and inedible part. So in most of the plants, there are going to be an inedible part. We're just trying to reduce it. And then with the waste, one of the proposals that we submitted is actually we're using worms to turn this waste into nutrient that we can use to grow mushroom. So it's part of like closing the loop, is like reusing the waste so you can grow different plants.
And if you're going to Mars, it's going to take a long time, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
7 months.
Is it better or more reliable to grow your own, as it were, rather than to take product from Earth, dry
Sure.
product?
So it's going to be a combination of both. So it's going to be dry product and then food you're going to grow. Because what happens over time is that food degrades. So you're losing vitamins and some very key nutrients for the human body. And so NASA came up with this list of what is called food gaps, which is for missions that are longer than 6 months, then vitamin C, for instance, degrade very quickly. So you can bring lyophilized orange, but it's going to lose its vitamin C over 6 months. So then you're lacking vitamin C and you don't have any other source of vitamin C on Mars. So it's going to be a combination of both, and plant growth is only going to be here to fulfill those food gaps. I mean, this is our strategy. It's not to provide everything for the entire diet, but it's really to provide specific food that fulfill those gaps.
I'm just trying to work out how much space it would take up to have what you would need to grow the food that you would need.
So it's to cover full diet of one human without any other source of food, you need 55 square meters. So it's the size of the biopod, that's why it's 55 square meters. It's a lot of square meters needed if you need to fulfill all the nutritional needs. But then if you're focus on like specific parts, protein or vitamin C or vitamin B12 or vitamin D, then you can like work on different plants and you don't need that much space.
Okay, so you talked about you think it'd be 100 years before we've got, a century before we've got people living in space permanently. Want to bring the horizon down to 10 years.
Yeah.
What's your ambition for Interstellar Labs in 10 years?
So we don't have the vehicle, so we don't have the rocket to go to space, so we're very dependent on the companies that are building those rockets. In 10 years from now, what we'll see, so the International Space Station is going to get replaced by the Axiom Space Station, so it's already happening. So we'll see this station up there and working. Then we're probably going to have probably three private stations touring around the Earth. Of course, the Chinese, but then I'm more talking about the American private company. You will see different stations, so we want to be the company that will provide the growing capabilities that will help growing those plants on the station. And then in 10 years from now, there's going to be multiple missions to the moon, and so we are part of the Artemis program and trying to get our first greenhouse on the moon. So you'll see us up there growing plants.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
In these turbulent times, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to Thinkpod for more insight and analysis.